In the dust-choked heart of the Wild West, when the sun burned the horizon into a sheet of fire, and the streets of small frontier towns were lined with wooden saloons and swinging doors, when every glance could mean a fight and every handshake could mean betrayal, there lived an Apache girl whose name was whispered like the wind through the canyon, Ayoka, which meant she brought happiness, though happiness was the one thing she had never truly known, for her people had been driven from their lands, her family torn apart by war and hunger, and though she carried the strength of her ancestors in her braided hair and the fire of her spirit in her dark eyes, she often found herself wandering the edge of white men's towns where no one welcomed her, where mothers pulled their children away from her path, where cowboys laughed as though her dignity was something to be gambled with, and in her heart she carried the heavy words, "No man wants me." She had grown into womanhood with muscle carved by survival, a body hardened by labor under the sun, her back straight, her gaze unbroken, and yet each time she stood near the dance hall or outside the blacksmith shop, each time she dared to imagine a smile, she was met with silence or cruelty, and loneliness pressed against her like a branding iron. It was on such a day, when dust storms curled like spirits through the main street and the heat shimmered against the rooftops, that she crossed paths with a man who would change everything, a rancher named Samuel Carter, a man of rugged shoulders, sun-scarred skin, and eyes that carried the stillness of rivers that cut through stone, a man who had buried a wife years ago and since lived only for cattle, land, and the quiet ache of solitude. Samuel had not planned to notice her. He was a man who kept his distance from trouble, who had long believed that emotions only weakened a man's hand on the plow or the gun. But when he saw Ayoka standing in the middle of the street, her chest heaving as men jeered at her, and her trembling voice broke into those words, "No man wants me," something deep inside him shifted like the earth before a storm. He stepped forward, boots striking the boards, and though the crowd laughed, though a drunkard muttered, "She's not fit for a ranch dog," Samuel's voice cut through the noise, calm but iron-edged. "That's enough. She comes with me." Silence fell like a hammer. Even the wind seemed to pause. Ayoka blinked, her lips parting as though she hadn't heard right, and Samuel only nodded, not asking her permission as much as offering her an unspoken pact. Safety, shelter, and perhaps something she had never known. Respect. She followed him because there was nowhere else to go, because her heart leapt with both fear and the fragile thread of hope, and together they left the sneers and whispers behind, riding out to his ranch where the land stretched wide, where the grass bent like waves beneath the sky, where the air smelled of sweat, leather, and the quiet patience of cattle. At first, silence built a wall between them, for Ayoka did not trust the sudden kindness of any man, and Samuel did not know how to speak to a woman who carried such scars. But little by little, trust grew in small ways. The way he left food by her place without comment, The way she helped mend fences with skill that surprised him. The way he watched her eyes soften when she saw the colts racing in the pasture. Nights around the fire became filled with stories. Her childhood among the Apache, the songs her mother had sung before soldiers came, the way her father taught her to read the stars, and his tales of battles fought not with guns, but with loneliness, the endless days after his wife's passing when he thought he'd bury himself in the work of the land. Each story bound them like strands of rawhide, unbreakable when woven together. The town whispered. Of course, they called him a fool, a man gone soft, a rancher, tainted by pity. But Samuel never cared for the words of men who drank more than they worked, and Ayoka, for the first time, began to feel the warmth of belonging. Still, shadows lingered, for every story worth telling in the West was haunted by danger. Outlaws who rode like wolves in the night, land barons who sought to swallow smaller ranches, and a lawless hunger for blood that waited just beyond the ridge. And one evening, as the sun bled red over the horizon, Ayoka stood by the corral, her hands resting on the wood, and she whispered, "Maybe no man wanted me, but you, Samuel, you saw me." And in his silence was the truth of men who did not waste words, a truth stronger than any oath. Their bond would be tested by fire and bullet, by betrayal and sacrifice. But in that moment, in the dust and dying light, something eternal began. And friends, if this story has captured your heart, if you want to know how love and courage survive in the untamed West, then stay with us. For this is only the beginning of Ayoka and Samuel's journey, and there are more battles, more passions, and more trials ahead. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because the West is full of stories that burn like fire and heal like rain, and you won't want to miss the next ride.